What's up guys, it's me Jeremy. Throughout the history of League of Legends, there's been loads of mid laners who have dominated the scene and defined the meta, both in solo queue and in competitive play. As we count down the top 10 mid laners in League of Legends history, we'll be measuring these champions by how dominant they were, how they performed in the metas, and the longevity they had as a mid lane champion. Also guys, I got some cool stuff to show off at the end of the video, so stick around for that. Anyways, let's get started. Number 10 is Yasuo. After the first patch after his release where he received a buff and a huge number of quality of life updates, Yasuo had become a clear frontrunner as a mid lane champion. He was extremely dominant for a good part of Season 4, and Yasuo knockup comps based around using his ultimate with champions like Wukong, Vi, and Malphite became highly contested and the most popular option for quite some time. When he was in his dominant state, he was the best mid laner in the game due to the power of the team comps built around him, and even as he got toned down a lot, he was still a powerful option when picked into the right matchup and with the right team to back him up. Although now he suffers a bit from being counterpicked, he's still been competitive ever since that first buff he had that really cemented him in the game as a prominent mid lane force. Number 9 is Kassadin. Funnily enough, Kassadin is kind of low on this list because of the fact that he saw so little play due to having a ridiculously high ban rate. When he was in his crazy overpowered state, his ban rate in solo queue was at about 99%, and we saw similar numbers for competitive play. His kit was insane, and it's only after he received a lot of nerfs that we finally started to see him slip through into some competitive matches. His mobility and his theme of being an anti-mage caused him to succeed in a lot of metas where he as a champion was viable, and even after being nerfed like crazy and having a lot of his utility such as his silence removed, he was still a viable option for quite some time and could snowball like mad when given a lead. And who could forget the champion who brought us the famous X-Peke play? Kassadin's led to a lot of really exciting moments, and although he might not be played so much anymore, his time in the spotlight lasted quite a long time. Number 8 is LeBlanc. Despite being considered what was basically garbage tier in Season 2, LeBlanc in Season 3 started to rise up and completely dominated the scene in Seasons 4 and 5. By changing the playstyle to max W instead of Q, her weaknesses of poor wave clear was made up for quite a lot, and she was able to become a burst mage assassin that was hyper mobile to the point where making plays and carrying games was super easy. And with the silence on her Q at the time, her laning phase was dominant against anyone who couldn't handle her burst, since her trading power was so one-sided due to the silence. Even after her silence was removed completely, she was still really strong due to the raw power she had in her kit on such short cooldowns. Number 7 is Ahri. She's done a great job of very consistently being a powerful option ever since she came out. She's had a few crazy edge cases where she was the best mid laner in the game by far for a patch or two, but she's been mostly top tier ever since early Season 3 since her kit is just so overloaded with utility that she can find success in almost all situations. And when she was strong, she completely wrecked the meta and was ridiculously popular. And even after being nerfed, she was still a really popular option due to her versatility as a character, causing her to be picked so often and have success in any meta where she wasn't over nerfed. Number 6 is Nidalee. Since Season 1 up until her rework, Nidalee was the dominant poke mage champion for any teams looking to run poke comps. Her high range spear on a super short cooldown with a ridiculous hitbox and ridiculous damage allowed her to be a fantastic siege champion, and her cat form allowed her to follow up on engages, which most poke mages had a much harder time doing. So with that, she brought a slightly more versatile and dynamic style of play. Poke comps have been a popular option since Season 1, and up until her rework, Nidalee was consistently a key factor in them. She was occasionally played as a top lane option, but she was predominantly a mid laner and saw a ton of play and was a really powerful champion to face that dominated the poke meta since her damage was totally ridiculous and the heal was very impactful when sieging objectives. Number 5 is Gragas. He shined in the mid lane through massive burst damage in his kit and short cooldowns, causing him to have not only amazing poke, but also the damage for burst combos when needed. His short cooldowns made him super powerful in fights, and his crowd control made his pick potential and utility quite insane. He shined as a competitive mid laner all the way from Season 1 up until his rework really, to even a few months after his rework until he started being played in the jungle. The explosive options his kit had and versatility as a champion allowed him to succeed in poke metas, assassin metas, tank metas, you name it. When he was strong, there was always the chance that he could QR the enemy AD carry and just one-shot them, and that power at range is really powerful and generates a lot of pressure that has a huge impact in positioning when it comes to team fights. He brought terror down on any squishy targets, and the massive AoE damage he brought was just insane. Number 4 is Karthus. Although his dominance only lasted for around 2 seasons or so, unlike the 4 or 5 of most of the champions on this list, he still gets played every now and then nowadays, and Karthus' reign in Season 2 and Season 3 was absolutely monstrous. It was at a time when global abilities were super overpowered and completely dominated the meta, and Karthus' ability to play as a frontline initiator with his passive was incredibly unique and made him the most contested pick in quite a lot of tournaments, since so many teams had prominent Karthus players. Reginald from TSM especially saw incredible success on Karthus, as the champion really allowed shot-calling mid laners to carry teamfights like mad by being an initiator, and the AoE damage Karthus brought to a fight was super reliable since most of it happened during his passive anyways, that you were going to get the Karthus combos off in a fight every single time since it's impossible to stop him when he's in his passive, that a massive AoE ultimate and frontline presence would allow the AD carries on your team to clean up the fight really easily, and so allowed Karthus team comps to completely dominate the meta. Number 3 is Zed. Ever since his release really, Zed has been a contested mid laner in every single region and an incredibly popular pick for solo queue too. He pioneered the assassin meta that took place in Season 3 and really developed the powerful style of jumping in, assassinating a target, and then jumping out for a free kill. His high range poke allowed him to have a dominant laning phase as well, and he became the premier split push champion for a long time and was super contested as a pick for split push compositions, or really just any comps looking for an assassin. He remained powerful in the meta from his release up until today, since he's a super fun champion to play and has pretty much always been a really strong pick up until arguably recently. His assassin style allowed him to counter most poke mages and do a really nice job of forcing fights and picking off fed carries. And to top it all off, his mobility and power made him a consistently dominant champion played throughout a lot of metas that took place over the years. Number 2 is Twisted Fate. From beta all the way to today, with the exception of a small dip in Season 4 maybe, Twisted Fate has been a highly dominant mid lane champion due to his ability to pressure the map and punish weak lanes so effectively. And when he was on top, there was no champion who dominated the mid lane as hard as Twisted Fate did, which happened around the time of Season 3. Notably, he was 100% pick banned across an entire season of OGN, and with his skill set was always a dominant option for solo queue. The utility his pick a card brings comboed with his wave clear allowed him to succeed in poke comps and perform well in teamfights. With the right build, he could pull off some massive burst damage to one-shot opponents, and he snowballed the map like no other champion in the game. The map presence Twisted Fate brings to a team is honestly insane, and he can carry all the lanes in any game by pushing a lane and just roaming constantly. Having a high damage targeted stun opens up quite a few options and makes it super hard to outplay him as well, so he has a very reliable kit to work with. It's difficult to lose the early game at all with an experienced Twisted Fate player on your team because they can carry every lane so hard. He might not be as versatile or as dynamic as some of the other champions on this list, but his strength and his reliability more than make up for it. And number 1 is Orianna. She might not have been as powerful for as long as some of the other picks on this list, but she definitely had her moment of being the best mid laner in the game around towards the end of Season 2, and throughout the years she's really clinched the spot of being the most consistent and versatile mid lane champion. In Season 2 she was a total monster, but she's been played in pretty much every meta from the start of Season 2 all the way until today. No dips or bumps where she fell out of the meta here and there like most of the other champions on this list. Her dynamic kit stems from the utility she provides with the awesome crowd control to combo for initiations, and her defensive options to make her powerful at kiting and in teamfights. Her damage is solid and reliable, and the Orianna ball composition is something that's been popular since Season 2 and has been a powerful option for team comps ever since. Comboing her ultimate with someone who has a gap closer is an insanely powerful initiation that instantly wins a teamfight when pulled off on the right target. And at the same time, since she has the defensive options in her kit with her kiting ability and her shielding, she's a strong pick even when behind. Her defensive options allow her to be a great pick versus assassins, and her shielding and wave clear as well as her initiation power make her a strong pick against poke champions, and so Orianna comps have been a strong consistent counter to quite a lot of the meta throughout the years, while also being a meta comp in its own right. And since she's strong throughout all phases of the game because of her passive, she's been a super reliable option that has dominated the meta. And so overall, Orianna's consistency, versatility, longevity, and power make her the #1 mid laner in League of Legends history. Now that the list is done, I can show you off my cool stuff. I should mention that I am not sponsored by this company in any way and I'm getting no money for this, but the owner is a huge help behind the scenes to YouTube content creators and he's a great friend of mine. So he's starting what I like to think is basically a League of Legends themed loot crate, and it's called The Vault and can be found at theleaguevault.com or the link in my description. It comes every month and you get League of Legends trinkets, merch, and a whole bunch of random stuff that is pretty cool and is always going to be valued at around 60 to 70 bucks, so it's definitely good value. I got mine last month and I had some kick-ass Leona keychains that I've been wearing as a necklace non-stop ever since I got them. I am in love with these. And it's League of Legends only, so it's never going to be random stuff you haven't heard about, and it's super fun to open because it's like you never know what you're going to get. So it's perfect for like a gift or maybe for like your sibling or your friend, or maybe if you just want some League of Legends merch in a super fun way. So do me a solid and check it out, and thanks for watching everybody.